Good news for Insta360 X4 owners, you now have a new, tiny and inexpensive remote control option for your X4, and I finally got my hands on one, so let's check it out. Up until just over a month ago, if you wanted a dedicated remote control for your Insta360 X4, your only options were the GPS action remote at around $80 or the GPS preview remote at $150. Now, don't get me wrong, these are great products, but having to pay even $80 is a lot of money if all you need is the basics like starting and stopping recording or powering on and off the camera. Well, now we have exactly that option, the new Mini Remote, which comes in at just $30 and provides exactly that functionality. So today we're going to check out the new Mini Remote. We're going to see how to connect it, what you can do with it, we'll do some testing, and cover everything else you need to know about the combination of the Mini Remote with your Insta360 X4. So there's a lot to cover, so as usual I'm going to place the chapters up here and on the video timeline, but first this. Before we continue with today's video, a quick disclaimer: this video is not sponsored, paid for, or influenced in any way. I purchased all of the equipment with my own money and the opinions are entirely my own. Now, I do include links to the featured products as well as my recording equipment. These may appear throughout the video and in the video description. If you purchase using these links, I may make a commission, and this is what helps fund the channel, but rest assured there is no price disadvantage to you. You are getting the best price I can find. Alternatively, if you want to support the channel, you could follow this link and buy me a coffee. And of course, if you enjoyed today's video, please remember to hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel for a lot more similar content. So back to the video. So if you purchase the Mini Remote, this is what you will receive. There is of course the remote itself. We have what's called the mounting base, a couple of rubber straps, and an instruction manual. Starting out with the remote itself, as the name suggests, it is very compact, having just a single button, a single status light, and on one end you will find a USB-C port for charging. And we will get into the details of connecting the remote and using it to operate the camera in a later section. In addition to the remote, there is this mounting base, which together with these rubber straps can be used to connect the Mini Remote to the handlebars of a bike, your skiing pole, selfie stick, and so on. It's pretty simple to do, and it holds the remote very firmly in place. There is a small rubber plug here which can be used to seal up the USB-C port. It's pretty tricky to do, and frankly it's in the wrong place. It should be tethered directly to the Mini Remote, just as they did with the GPS action remote, and that would also make the Mini Remote waterproof. As it stands, the Mini Remote is only splash-proof, which I think is a big miss from Insta360. Also worth mentioning, this clip can be rotated freely and placed in whatever orientation works for you. Okay, so before we connect the Mini Remote to my X4, the first thing we're going to do is make sure that my X4 is updated to the very newest firmware, and for that we're going to open up the Insta360 app. So in our Insta360 app, we're going to connect to the X4. And as you can see, there is a new firmware release available, version 1.7.18, and the main focus of this firmware update is for optimized connection performance between the camera and the Mini Remote control. So I click Update Firmware, and a couple of minutes later, we are updated to the newest version. Okay, so our firmware is up to date, so now we are going to connect the mini remote to my X4. So I'm going to hold down the button for 2 seconds to power on the mini remote. You'll notice that the light begins flashing, indicating that it's on and in pairing mode. So on my X4, I'm going to go into my settings, and if I scroll over, you'll notice there is a remote icon right in the middle of the screen here. And when I tap on this, it will immediately begin searching for any compatible remotes. And as you can see, very quickly it has located it, so I just simply tap on it. And now we are connected. If I go back out to the main screen, you'll notice there is now a remote control icon in the top right corner. As far as controlling the X4 is concerned, the mini remote only provides very basic functionality. A single press of the button will start the recording. And I do like the very prominent flashing light here, which shows me on the remote that the camera is recording. Now, while you are recording, a long press on the button will mark part of your video, and this enables you to find it easily later on if you're editing using the Insta360 app. And of course, another single press on the button will stop the recording. The only other feature supported by the mini remote is powering on and off the camera. So from the on position, if I hold down the button, it will power off both the camera and the remote. And now that these are paired, assuming you have the Bluetooth wake feature enabled, holding down the power button will power on both the camera and the remote. Now you'll notice that it takes quite a while for the remote to actually fully connect and be operational. And of course this delay could be a problem if you want to start up the camera and quickly start recording. But the good news is that the quick capture function is also supported from the mini remote. The way that works, if both the camera and the remote are powered off, in order to activate the quick capture mode, instead of a long press here, we do a double press. Again, it powers on the camera, but this time it immediately starts the recording. And just like when using the camera's own record button, if I stop the record button using the remote, it will stop the recording and it will shut down the camera unless I tap on the screen to keep it powered on. Now notice when this happens that the remote, however, does stay powered on, so I have to turn that off manually. Now in the past I have had issues when it comes to connecting more than one Bluetooth device to an Insta360 camera, but I'm happy to report that that no longer seems to be the case. So as you can see, I have my remote paired with my X4 here. Let's assume I want to add my Bluetooth microphone. I have a DJI Mic Mini which I'm going to add here. I'm going to put it into the pairing mode and go into my menu and select the AirPods icon. You can see that it finds it and I can connect to it successfully. So you can see now at the top of the screen my remote icon and my AirPods icon are both there, and you can also see the audio level meter at the top of the screen. And also, assuming you have voice commands enabled, it is possible to use the combination of the remote control and voice commands. So for example, I initiate the recording by pressing the button, and if I want to stop it, I can use a voice command, stop recording. And you can see it accepts my voice command, and it also updates the status of the remote. If I use the voice command start recording, again you'll see It starts and it also updates the status on the remote. And of course I can stop it using the remote. Okay, time to do a range test. Now, according to Insta360, the Mini Remote will work at a range of up to 10 meters or 33 feet, which I have marked out here. Now, I do have the focus placed on the X4 rather than on myself, so you can see what happens here. So I'm going to walk away. We're going to get to 10 meters away and see if it still works, and maybe we'll even try to push it a little further. Okay, so let's just do a quick test. When I hit the record button, obviously the camera starts recording, and when I hit it again, obviously it stops. So let's take a walk. Okay, here I am at 5 meters away from the camera, and I'm going to hit the record button, and I can see on the remote, I really do like the little status light on the remote that shows me that it's recording, and I can see the red light blinking on the camera, so 5 meters, no problem. Let's go ahead and stop the recording. And now we are 10 meters away from the camera, or 33 feet. This is the specified range of the Mini Remote. Let's go ahead and give it a test. Starting recording. I hear it on the camera. I can see the red light both on the camera and on the remote. So we have a successful test result at 10 meters. Maybe let's take it a little bit further and see how far we can get. So now I'm around about 15 meters away from the camera, which is pretty close to 50 feet. So let's go ahead and give it a try. Start the recording. And I can see on the camera and on the remote that it is still working at 15 meters. And one last test. I'm not even sure if I'm still in camera shot, but I'm probably around about 20 meters away from the camera here, so about 66 feet. Let's go ahead and give it a try. And in fact, we are still working. Even at this range, we still seem to be working. The first issue I want to talk about is the extremely long connection time. Now, this has been a problem with Insta360 cameras since I can remember, and frankly, it's more an issue of the camera than it is of the remote. So basically, when you power on the camera, even though it wakes up together with the remote, it takes quite a long time, about 15 to 20 seconds, before the remote is fully connected and operational. With other cameras, this connection is instant, and I just don't understand why Insta360 cannot fix this. The second issue is another one that I have experienced ever since I first connected a remote to an Insta360 camera, and again, I cannot believe this has not been fixed. So, what is that issue? Well, here I have my X4 and my remote paired, and as we've seen previously, of course, I can power them off together, and I can wake up my X4 at any time. After a few minutes, a few hours, even a few days or weeks, this will work. I simply hold down the button on the remote and it will wake up the camera. So far so good. But if I were to power off the camera and for any reason remove the battery, whether it's to swap out the battery or access the memory card, when I replace the battery, the wake up function no longer works. My X4 can otherwise remember every setting, even the current time and date, but for some reason it can no longer be woken by the remote until they are reconnected. Now, it's easy enough to reconnect them. All I need to do is manually power on my X4 and wait for the 15 to 20 second delay. And now we are connected again, and now it works. So I can power off, and power back on again, and everything works as expected. But for me, I think the most critical issue is that they did not make the Mini Remote waterproof, and that is mainly due to the exposed USB-C port. Now, clearly Insta360 recognized this because they added this rubber stopper to the mounting base, but this is so difficult to get in here, particularly while it's tethered to the mounting base. So I may end up just cutting it off and maybe adapting it slightly and using it as a permanent plug on the remote. Now I realize this is not going to make it fully waterproof, but it should certainly improve the water and dust resistance. So overall, I am pretty impressed with the Mini Remote. I think it's a good addition to my X4 accessories. It is go anywhere tiny, and it does provide basic level remote control capability, being able to start and stop recording, as well as power on and off the camera. Now, interestingly, if you pair the Mini Remote with the Ace Pro 2, which is currently the only other compatible camera, it also adds the capability of being able to switch modes using a double press on the button, but that same functionality is not available on the X4. Now, in my opinion, they could easily have added it to the X4, but I think the reason they didn't is because there's no way of telling, looking at the remote, which mode you are currently in. Now, of course, the same is true when you're using the Ace Pro 2, but the Ace Pro 2 does at least have the screen reader functionality, which will give you an audible confirmation of the command from the remote.
Time shift. Loop recording.
It's not perfect, but at least it is something. And I think enabling that feature without the screen reader capability was just a little bit too dangerous, and there's a good chance that you would go out for a day of filming and come back with a day's worth of time-lapse recordings or whatever instead of standard video. Otherwise, I think my biggest complaint about the Mini Remote is the fact that it's not waterproof. I think that was a big miss from Insta360 and basically means you cannot use this when doing water sports or in any environment where the remote might get wet. As far as the price is concerned, I think maybe $30 is a bit expensive when you consider what is in here. But I do have to give credit to Insta360 for listening to their customers and coming out with a simpler and less expensive option, because paying $30 for the Mini Remote definitely beats paying $80 or more for one of the more advanced remotes if you don't need the extra functionality. So that wraps it up for another video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please remember to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for a lot more similar content. If you have any questions, any comments, if you want to share your experience or make suggestions for future videos, please drop those into the comments section. Otherwise, thanks again for watching.